Okay, so I want to go over a few things. Who has seen that video I put on the game? Everybody pretty much seen that on the Facebook thing? Okay. I wanted to go over a few things in regards to where I'm coming from. And we're going to do tonight a little bit different. I've been doing this whole series of looking at the body parts, and what I was trying to do is I was trying to like make all these sheets ahead of time, the digestive system and all that, and it just got to be too complicated because I'm going to let it be more free form. And you know, I was trying to be professional up front, and it's almost impossible in this. You know, it's impossible in this situation just because things that may come up, I might not have a video for, and there's no way to cover the entire system. So what I'm going to do a little bit different than normal is I'm going to go up here in a second after I discuss some stuff here, and then when I go up there, whoever wants to come up, we can address anything physical, whether it's a physical issue like muscular, structural, or internal too. I want to start looking at how all that ties together, and in order to give you a different picture of that, you know, if you go back, I've got like almost 90 videos on YouTube now, and really if you go back in the very beginning, I know it takes forever to go through them now, but not forever, but forever is listening to me. Yeah, I mean, it may seem like, oh my God, I really get tired of his voice. But no, there's like 90 videos on there, and if you go from I was looking at it the other day, and it's really kind of my progression of ahas. So each one kind of builds on the other. In this last little video I did, sometimes when I do something, you know how you're always like a little critical of yourself, you're like, I could have done this. I really like the way this one turned out. There's only a few things I would have changed, but I like it because it's accessible, even though I could have put a little more deeper stuff in there. So I'm going to show about 8 minutes of that. And then anybody see the half Nelson thing? Okay, I'm going to play that again because it fits in so perfectly with what I want to tie in with. What I'm trying to show you is that the reality that we're in, it's woven into our DNA because our DNA is woven out of it. Okay, it's almost like a sheet. If you take a sheet, okay, like a sheet of like, you know, another example that a lot of people use is the ocean. So if you take a sheet, like it's everything, like a sheet. I can see how many times I can say that. Like a sheet. I'm trying to. And they did this in I Heart the Huckabees. They kind of do this whole thing with the sheet. But if you take that sheet and like you pinch two different things together, and it's like everything comes from that sheet. So here we are trying to make changes, but a lot of what ties us in or locks us into changes that don't appear to happen fast is related to the system that we're bought in, or that we're in because we're made of it. Okay, so I'm looking at loosening that in a way of having more dramatic changes. So the progression of that is, you know, working with muscles and things like that, and then doing tapping because there's a mental emotional component. So you can sit there and massage somebody's muscle or work on them, or on the other side go through the medical field and address somebody's system, or go through the psychological field and address somebody's issue. But to me, they all three tie together. Physiology and psychology should have never been split because they're two of the same thing. You know, to me, my whole idea, my pipe dream would be to be working with a really good group of psychologists and a group of doctors, and I would just be doing my part, and they'd be doing their part to bring that all together, and massage therapists, all those things working together because you're working on the whole person. So it'd be like a facility where all these people are working on all the levels of the person because there's so many Yes, exactly.
In each field, I think there are people who are on that edge where it could.
Oh yeah, it definitely. Yeah, it will. I mean, it's a guarantee. It will eventually. Yeah, and I'm totally.
There are centers that do it.
Yeah, and in different ways for sure. So I'm going to skip kind of this thing here. So our practice typically is to get like the verbal lesson, the written, and the practice. I'm not going to do much of the meditation pranayama today because I don't want to. I'm going to be taking some time to show a little bit of that video for those that haven't seen it and tie that together. So I don't want to take too much of that time up. And this I'm going to say for Thursday. This is actually on the left here. This is actually what they call a heartbeat fractal. Have y'all ever seen where they do the pulse point reading? Okay, Dalai Lama has the Dalai Lama's personal medical physician is someone that does like the pulse point readings. In other words, there's six meridians on each side, or actually I have 12 meridians completely, but there's 6 meridians left and right. Some are superficial, some are deep. So basically, they call it pulse point reading. You Google that, you'll find it everywhere. So basically, there's a different pulse on all three positions here, superficial and deep. It makes 12 points. So by reading the pulse, you can tell what that particular organ is doing. So it's really fascinating. But the more fascinating thing is that with one heartbeat, you have these other waves that are on it. So there's multiple waves within the heartbeat. And the reason I'm bringing that in, because something I've been playing with recently, is that your beliefs are in your blood. So if you have a particular belief system, a concept, or a perception, that's being sent to your body, that program, that wording, that whatever, to do this, do this, do this, do this. Because the systems of our body are made of the system. I'm going to try to tie that all together. We'll see how well I do that. So I'm going to show you just a 7-minute clip of the new video I just did called The Game.
All right, I'm going to get started here. A new video for you today
Can we shut this
called The Game.
or not?
Let's start with the
I
game
did.
board. AK.
Yeah, Teresa, will you behind your head just hit that?
Oh.
Sorry, right behind you. Thank you. Can everybody hear it so far?
So far.
Okay.
The Matrix, aka the hologram, aka Maya. It has 64 squares. That's 8 times 8, which equals 64. And that's really interesting, and you'll come to see why.
Come to see.
64,
Every time I listen to that, I said, come to see to why.
or as in 64-bit operating system, like a computer system, a system that you would use to create something like a game, or at least to play a game. 64-bit operating system, welcome to the Matrix. So you can see here the chessboard on the left, you got the little Matrix picture on the bottom left, and then you have the chess game, kind of in a green, representing like the Matrix 3D game. So what if what we're actually partly in is a, now I'm not going to say it's computer generated, but let's say it's very much like the computer. In other words, it's a consciousness created reality with very restricted codes and systems that lock everything in place. Your RAM, which is your random access memory, keeps you in the game, the Matrix, the hologram, in the drama. So you can see in the very center of the word drama, you have the RAM, which is your random access memory. So things that have happened in your past experiences, they keep repeating over and over in your consciousness, and they create certain patterns, mental emotional patterns that keep you locked within the drama or the game board of the Matrix of the hologram. Drama equals supreme being trapped in or playing within a complex system matrix via random access memory, which creates emotional patterns or lock-ins. And so here I'm looking at the word drama again, RAM, and the word Rama actually is referring to a supreme being. So Ram here, it says, this is from Wikipedia, Ram is the 7th avatar. An avatar is going to come into play a little bit later, or a little bit later in the slides. And in a few Ramic-centric sects, Ram is considered to be the supreme being rather than an avatar. So let me just explain an avatar. Avatar is like an embodiment or an extension of a supreme being.
And an example of that would be God is the supreme being. Jesus is the avatar that God used to come into the reality. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. That's even biblical. They talk about that. Jesus is God, right? Jesus was the avatar of God that came in.
I'm reading, I don't know if anyone has heard this book, but it's fantastic. It's called The Pagan Christ. And it'll rattle your chain a little bit, but it talks about how Ra,
mm-hmm.
the whole Hebrew, the belief system was everything that, about Jesus' life, 12 apostles, this, that, the other, all of it. They traced it to the Egyptian mythology. Mm-hmm. It's all there. And Ra was they used the sun as their symbol for the supreme being. Yeah. Because it was their source of life. Well, anyway, I related.
And the thing about that is, in the center of our solar system, soul system, is the sun. The sun is at the very, very center, right? So the Son of God. So there's many layers, because we're in a system which plays by the exact same rules over and over and over again. And just like in a computer system, and sometimes there's loops that happen so you don't have to rewrite everything all the time. So if there's a new group of beings learning something, basically you just go off the old loops, right? Until you're done with the loops and you get off the loops. So here we have, in our galaxy, we've got the Supreme Being being the center of the galaxy, and our sun being an avatar of that. Does that make sense? So you can see there's all these layers that would happen within that. And beyond that, you have the multiverse and every galaxy being an avatar of that. So it's nested rushing dolls over and over and over again. So within the program, it repeats over and over all the time. Norman brought up a really good example when we were playing Thursday. And he talked about how, you know, when Kennedy got assassinated, there was a theater involved, and the names were interesting too. I don't remember all that.
Lincoln's secretary was named Kennedy.
Lincoln's secretary was named Kennedy.
And Kennedy's
secretary was named
Okay, and not only that, but after after Oswald supposedly he's the one that shot Kennedy, he went to a theater. So there's these weird little loop-ins, which to me are like just circles that happen within a movie. So you like have extras or something like that. So you get to have these experiences over and over in reality.
And both assassins are known by 3 names.
Yeah. So there's like these little hiccups within the system, which makes me think of Matrix, the first Matrix, where the cat walks by when they're going up the stairs, and there's like a blip, and he's like, "That was weird. I just had deja vu." And they tell him that something was added or inserted into the program. It's almost like how you would cut a movie and then add something into it. Yeah. So there's these loops that always happen, I think, and being in those loops and being tied into them cause your repeated drama play out. So it's interesting. Rama is in the Ram. The Supreme Being is in the center of drama, and Ram can be an avatar or the Supreme Being. So Jesus is also God, but also Jesus. So there's a weird thing about that being both things, right? And he's one of the beings that actually went outside of the drama and then could actually affect the drama. You can't affect the drama while you're in it. If you're in a drama, if you're totally in an issue, can you really change it? Not normally, because you're caught up in the tornado, right? I get the tornado because Bambi and I were talking earlier about the aspect of our energy spiraling. So there's so many tie-ins, it gets crazy.
And the Supreme Being is the Supreme Being. And I'm going to kind of go over how that may be exactly what we are doing in a particular way. But I'll revisit that whole Supreme Being and Avatar bit a little bit later. I have to warm you up first. 64-bit operating system. And here on the right you see there are 64 I Ching hexagrams, a very ancient way of divination, seeing into the future and decoding all kinds of things related to health also. And what's really interesting about the 64 I Ching hexagon is that there's also 64 codons within the DNA. And I think that word is interesting, codons. You could also be thinking about code-offs. So within your DNA, you have 64 possibilities of codes being turned on or off. In the I Ching 64, and ties back into the 64-bit operating system that we may be linked into. Let's go a little bit deeper within the whole 64-bit thing, shall we? A 64-bit operating system works off of a binary system, or binary instruction code, or codes, and binary data. So 1 is like on, and a 0 is off. So you've got binary means 2. So you've got basically, it's amazing how the computer works. Basically you have an on and off. A bunch of 1s and 0s at the very foundation of the computer, and how all these, makes up pictures, it makes up videos. It's amazing what it creates. So basically binary system on and off is what a 64-bit operating system works off of, which is really cool. The game board below this whole chessboard is binary. The game board has 2 opposing yet complementary colors. One is light, one is dark. That is. So
remember the complementary light and dark, because that's going to come into play when I play the other video.
The binary code. So right now you're looking at a 64-bit. So this chessboard looks pretty innocent, but basically, in a complex way, you're looking at a 64-bit binary code system. Right there within the chess game board. Light and dark, on and off, yin and yang. Without the binary code, there would be no physical reality or game board. So we have to have the light and the dark, the on and the off, and the yin and the yang. Now they are complementary forces, but they can appear to be opposing forces, fighting forces, but ultimately they're actually just two aspects of one thing. But in this reality, what we find ourselves in this game board, they appear as opposing forces, on and off, light and dark, yin and yang, so that we can experience a particular reality. We need a binary code, opposing movement, a system, matrix, hologram, whatever you want to call it, and drama to have a game. But wait, where are the players? Well, let me tell you, it's a freaking trip. The players are created out of or within the system. Hold on to your backgammon board, because this next part is going to be some trippy ball stuff. Let's start at the beginning. From the Zen aspect, we have yin and yang, so you have the white and the black, yin and yang. That's the white and the black squares on the chessboard. The sperm is yin, related to physiology, and the egg is yang. On a quantum physics level, you can even look at the sperm. It's a wave, okay? And the particle, which is basically just a form of matter, or a point of matter, is the egg. And matter in Latin is mother. So it's interesting, the feminine is the matter and the wave is the sperm. So here we have quantum physics within the physiology, and within yin and yang, going back to the whole Zen of everything, if you will. Yin and yang come together in an orgasmic explosion of creation, a big bang. So here we have the wave and the particle coming together, the white and the black, and they create the one. You are the one, Neo. So one becomes two. So I'm going to go into the cell division, and as I do the cell division, I'm going to be showing you how the board opens up. So you are in a game board, or on a game board, and the other crazy thing is that you are created out of the game board, out of the coding that creates the game board. And not only that, but you're not only in a program, you are yourself a program. That's the truth.
Exactly. I'm going to play that one more time.
Created out of the game board, out of the coding that creates the game board. And not only that, but you're not only in a program, you are yourself a program. That's the...
Think about it. Your astrology, that's all programming. It tells you what your personality is. It tells you what you will do. You can look at the Enneagram. You can look at most of the psychological patterns out there, whether it's based on different studies that I've looked at. There's all these different patterns of basically what most people are made out of. And basically, if you look at all those things, you can find out what your program is at the current moment. But I believe there's also a thing where you move past that, because while you're playing by that, you can't get out of it. Okay? So here what I wanted to also show is, we're starting with 0 or 1, and when the cell division happens, you have 1 and it becomes 2. So then 2 things pop up on the board. The reason I'm trying to show that is to show you that as this builds, you're that program too. You become like a board yourself. Okay? In other words, you are so much in a part of the matrix, for lack of a better way, so much a deep part of this thing that we're in, that you yourself are an intricate part of it. You can't get yourself out of it. And that comes up in that half Nelson clip too.
The tricky part. Okay? So one cell divides into 2 and you get a line or a plane. Then the 2 becomes 4 and you actually get a 3D shape.
So here you have 4 cells. You can't see the third one. See how they would line if you have the bottom of the pyramid here? But if you put a line between them all, bing, 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 and the top, you get a little 3D shape. So right within, so you've heard of, for those of you that have heard of sacred geometry is really just referring to the beginning of everything. And here's the thing about Genesis within the body. If you look at Genesis within the physical body, what's happening in the uterus, it's telling you and showing you exactly what happened from the very beginning of our beginning, because it's a fractal, it's off the cell program. So you have two energies coming together, male and female, yin and yang, boom, big bang. Big bang creates life, a new life. And then what happens, the cell division is actually showing you what happens and how life is created. You go from a point to a line to 3D and on and on and on. So it's showing you exactly how our reality that we're living in was created. Not just the human form, but everything that we're in. So the sacred geometry, what's the most sacred thing? Life. So sacred geometry is the structure, the molecular structure, the genetic shape of life, period. And you can get all caught up in the shapes. I've done lots of that. You've seen little shape things around that I've put together. So here you see how that opened up on the board. Now you have 4 on the board.
See the triangle at the top. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4 points, and that's when 3D reality is created. On the far right, you can see the cell division there related to that stage of division. You can see 4 squares on the chessboard, and that little triangle at the top, or pyramid, is called a tetrahedron. It has 4 points. 4 becomes 8, and if you have 8 points, you get a cube, or you get a star tetrahedron.
So the 4 points, and actually a tetrahedron fits inside of a cube. They're really the same thing. So a big thing in the metaphysical New Age thing is the star tetrahedron. You see people wear them; they're big a thing. Drumbelow's got this whole thing about the Merkaba, which is the energy field that surrounds the body, which is that shape, which we have that, because in our energy body, we have these shapes too. But right here, it forms that shape automatically as cell division's happening within the utero. And it's fast too. I mean, this is like day 4. It's already gone through this. So from conception to the baby coming out, if you looked at every stage of that, it would show you exactly how creation, the reality we live in, the universe, everything is created. From the Big Bang happening, the 2 energies coming together, the Big Bang happening, structure happening, and then life happening from that. So we're so tied into it because we go through the exact same pattern. And doesn't it make sense? How could we go through a different pattern if we're in that system, right? So we're so ingrained within the system because we're made out of it. We're made out of the same stuff that the system is made out of. That's why sometimes it's so hard to break free, because because what I'm trying to bring about with this and why I'm showing it tonight, and before we start doing stuff up here, is what I want you to get is that the changes we want to make are like woven into our very being, because we're born into this system, right? But there is a way to loosen that.
Tetrahedron, which is really prevalent in the New Age metaphysical information. Basically 8 points, and on the right you see the cell division related to that. It's basically a star tetrahedron. So not only in the womb is this related to like coding, but the sacred geometry is referring to this life division as we come into this reality.
So I'm going to stop that there. I'm not going to go too much more in this. I want to cover a couple of more things. But the main thing to get, what happens is 8 becomes 16, then the board opens up and boom, 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 it gets 16 goes 32, 32 becomes 64. And basically there you are, you're your own operating system, just like the operating system that you're in. So it's almost like, in a way, it's like a computer program was written and the computer program actually started generating babies. Okay? But if you're... Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it, Marcia. It's a fractal of the very system. We're a fractal of the system that we're in. Okay? Which means to some degree that we're bound by the laws that the system were written on, right? Because we're in the system, right? Okay, that's that. Now I'm gonna show you this clip, Half Nelson, which is crazy because I made this movie clip. When did I put that out? Was it?
You made the...
It came quick. I think it was Wednesday, because Thursday I had group. I think it was Wednesday because it came to me really quick. I was talking about something on Facebook, and something shifted, something went boom, and all this started kind of coming to my head. So, and lucky my day was light, so it took about 8 hours for me to do that entire video. You know, swipe the pictures and put all that writing together. But the crazy thing is on Netflix, you know how you can put movies in the queue? And I've got like 200-something movies in my queue. Here's the cosmic crazy thing about the system that you're working in. It still blows my mind. I haven't wrapped my mind around this completely, but I don't know how long ago I put this movie in. I don't even remember putting it in. But it winds up showing up and reflecting exactly what some of the concepts I had in that thing. That's crazy shit, right? Because I put that way in before, right? So here's the crazy thing.
There's the cat that walked in here.
Huh?
There's the cat that walked in here. Whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the inserted thing. So that's my concept. Is I think we change things like that. You know, there is some talk that there is no future or past, which means as you're going along, your consciousness is making up what happened in the past, and you're also making up what might happen in the future. So the thing about that happening, maybe I'm just making it up in this moment. You know, that could be freaky, but I don't want to go there.
Kind of thoughts, it's like, was that real? Did that really happen? And then I see something in my house that I still have from that, and it must have happened. I have had that sense that, was that really real?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this clip here is what I watched. So I made this clip here Wednesday, and then this movie came in the mail, and I watched it Friday. And I was like, and here's another crazy thing. I was sitting there writing key points down from the movie. So, and usually what I do is I get a movie and I'll iron clothes as I watch a movie. So I had my little piece of paper and something would be said, I'd write it down. I was like, ooh, I'm gonna copy this and put it together. And then when I got to my computer, I said, let me at least see if I can find some of these clips without having to do it all myself, because I didn't have time to do it. Well, I found, first clip I click on was this one that had every single one of the freaking clips I was going to pull out, they had pulled out and put together. I was like, that is freaky. Yeah, I was like, cha-ching. So these are like clips of the entire movie, but every one of them is the exact thing. So every one of these clips here is relating back to the game. So think about it relating back to the game. The opposing forces were in the system and a part of the system. That all comes up in this.
Okay.
So this next part is going to explain what it's all about. If you can get that. Why we're in this is what he's going to explain right next.
What movie this is?
Half Nelson.
Never heard it.
What is history? You can read the board. So happy to hear that.
So he said, what's history? Opposites, right? So we're already talking about the whole yin and yang thing.
No, what is it? What does it mean? Stace.
Change.
Thank you, Stacy. I'm glad to hear someone's paying attention. History is the study of change over time. And what's change? It's this, it's opposites. It's two things that push against each other in opposite directions. So the civil rights movement, okay? It's essentially, it's two opposing mentalities. In the South, the majority believes all men are not created equal. And there's a minority who believes that they are. So that minority struggles, and it fights, and it pushes, till eventually it becomes the majority.
See? It's the opposing force that brings about the change and the growth in not only individuals, but the collective. So the minority are the people believing that everyone is deserving of life, and the majority at that time was believing the opposite. So the opposing force is there to cause the change that can only happen when two opposing forces come together. If there was no opposing force, no change would ever happen in your life or the world at all. That's why the opposing forces are there. But they're not opposing. They're actually complementary. Yin and yang come from the exact same thing. We are yin and yang within ourselves, but we came from one single explosion, right?
Am I boring you? Huh? Let's give some examples, okay? Opposing forces, like, I'm gonna go night and day. What else?
Big and little.
Good. Anything else?
Left and right.
Left and right, very good. Stace?
Me and you.
You and I.
You and I.
Teacher, student. Anything else? Yeah.
Just wondering if you count me and Gina's both had a sister as opposites.
Gina, come on, tell me how you're gonna take that. You got a bald sister? Is your sister bald? Give me something.
May 17th, 1954.
This I didn't get. This must have something to do with the rest of
I expect some.
Yeah, it's just, he's a history teacher and he's teaching them dates. So she throws out a date, which is interesting. I didn't look that up, but that might be very significant for us to look up, because this guy who made this movie, directed this movie, is very clever in getting some deep, deep concepts across. And sometimes things are hidden. So he never goes into what that's about, but we might look it up. So it's, somebody write that down, May 17th, 1954. I'm sure it has to do with a lot with the equal rights, because a lot of the movies around that, he's teaching minorities, right? And back then, those are huge opposing forces. We need to change and grow out of this limiting consciousness. That's what the collective's doing, but you know what? That's what every one of us is doing in our life, is we have an obstruction against us trying to push us to up level, to expand and grow, right?
Talk from you. I don't want just dates and facts. I want to know why. I want to know consequences. I want to know what it means. What am I supposed to teach them? What am I supposed to teach them? Because that's the point. It helped one student.
Yeah.
No, if you could change one person, if you change one person,
Change law.
change one.
Oh, then you can teach the rest of the village that, what was it? I want to dance.
Well, I feel good today. Anyone else feel good? I need a volunteer, and I need somebody who feels strong. So what we got here is two opposing forces, Terrence and myself.
What's interesting is the creativity of yin and yang right there. Just in that simple image, you have the black skin, the white skin, right? Yin and yang fighting against each other, even though they are the same humanity, they come from the same thing, we're all the same. Yeah, but we're playing the game of opposites, which is really a game. There's nobody opposite you in this reality at all. Just like God is no further away from you than the blood coursing through your veins.
It's the
Pushing
Jim
again.
Crow thing.
Huh?
It was the Jim Crow laws. You know, the U.S. Supreme Court on May 17, 1954 ruled unanimously that racial segregation in public schools violated the 14th Amendment of the Constitution, which says that no state may deny equal protection of law to any person within its jurisdiction.
So the movie had that undercurrent of people coming together. Here you have this really hip white guy teacher teaching a bunch of economic children kind of trapped in the machine, and a minority, and so there's that balance playing out within the movie. It's a really clever movie.
Against each other, and as long as one is stronger.
Here's the key thing: one is stronger, but what does the strong side make you do? Here's the whole thing about, everybody talking about the government taking away rights and everything, but that's pushing us to do something in return, right?
Looks like it's tea. The change is slow and consistent. Once the other side becomes stronger. There's a turning point.
A turning point. That's the flip-flop. And you can look at that as the yin and the yang spinning. One side's on top, and then it flips, and then the other side's on top, and it keeps flip-flopping. But if you speed away from reality altogether and you speed it up, that yin and yang is speeding super fast. But in our perception, it's going slow. But from somebody else's perception, a God point of view, it's happening so fast. It's a continual flow.
Make sense? Okay. Now, turning points can happen like that. They can be physical, or they can happen on the greater scale. Like a war or something. So, why don't you do me a favor and write 3 examples of historical turning points that we've talked about in class. Okay? In Asia, the idea that things are made of opposites, yin and yang, dates back 3,000 years. Taoism saying change is the only constant. But that just died in the West. It just couldn't be both. Couldn't be black and white. It couldn't be right and wrong. It had to be one or the other. Who am I to say that Aristotle's wrong, right? But that doesn't make any sense. These things need each other. The idea that all God's creations are perfect. Perfect. So just to suggest that a tree it's crooked and it's straight. It's strong and it's weak, is to suggest that God created something imperfect. They do, however, acknowledge it in people. We are sinners, but we can strive to be good. Just not in nature itself, I guess.
part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. And you've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from working at all.
And what is this?
Huh?
Is that rough, neighbor?
I'm not sure who that was, actually. So think about what he's talking about, the machine being the matrix. Okay? Here he is raving against the machine, but he's about to prove something that we're all part of the machine. So if you're raving against it, you're raving against yourself, period.
The machine that he's talking about. It's keeping us down. What is it?
Like robots and stuff, right?
It could be robots. It could be robots, but let's say it's a metaphor. He's saying this machine is keeping me down. Now, what is that? What keeps us from being free? Miss Dre.
Prisons.
Absolutely. Absolutely prisons. Okay? Prisons are definitely a part of it. What else?
White.
White is definitely a part of it. The man.
The school.
The school. Exactly. The whole education system is part of the machine. What else?
Aren't you the machine then?
Oh, no, you didn't. What'd you say?
Aren't you the machine?
You saying I'm the machine?
Yeah, you're white part of the school.
Oh, yeah, I guess you got a point. All right, so I'm part of the machine, but if I'm part of it, so are you. You are too. We all are. And this is the thing. Remember? Everything is made of its opposing force. We may be opposed to the machine, but we're still very much a part of it, right? I work for the government, the school, but I'm also very much opposed to a lot of its policies. You guys hate coming to school, right?
Yeah.
Holler back if you heard me. You hate it, but you come anyway. Sometimes, exactly. Number 3. Change moves in spirals, not circles. For example, the sun goes up and then it comes down. But every time that happens, what do? You get a new day. You get a new one. When you breathe, you inhale and then you exhale. But every single time that you do that, you're a little bit different than the one before. We're always changing. And it's important to know that there are some changes you can't control, but that there are others you can.
Anyway, it's a pretty powerful movie. There's some other stuff what's going on in his life and everything else. This other stuff I'm going to save till Thursday and go a little bit deeper with some other aspects. But you can think about, here's the yin, here's the feminine, here's her 32 bits of information, the XX chromosome, here's the male 32 bits of information, and they come together and you get the DNA, the kundalini, the chakras. All of it is made of the same system. Every bit of it is the system. Okay? But the cool thing about it is we can work within the system. By knowing the system, which has been my big study, you can affect change in the mind, the body, emotions, all of that. But you got to know a little bit about the system to be able to work within it. Okay? And then there's also the realm of like being Jesus, who bent the rules of the system. You know, people aren't supposed to rise from the dead. People aren't crippled and being able to walk. A leper can't just grow new skin. A blind man can't see. Those are rules within a system that Jesus was able to work outside of. You have to ask yourself, why was he able to work outside of the system? And this hints at it. Beth sent me this, and I really like it, so I'm going to share it here. Some of y'all have listened to Abraham Hicks stuff, and I'm tying this in because it was perfect timing with everything else. It is freaky. So, and I agree with it 100%. So this is, Beth sent me this about Abraham Hicks. She had received an email. And this is Abraham Hicks channeling this. Knowing you look good, feeling great that you look good, knowing that they know you look good. Scene over. Of course, this is in the middle of something, so we're missing a little bit of something, but it ties it together. In other words, you must go that long, or you remember being dressed in something that you felt really good in, and you remember somebody else who you didn't even know meeting you in an elevator and saying, you are really beautiful in that. So what they're referring to is, even though you may not be feeling that, try to have that consciousness, remember it in the moment. Because how you feel in the moment, what you believe in the moment, is changing your DNA, like that. Epigenetics is proving that more and more. Epigenetics says there could be, in your bloodline, no cholesterol issues until, let's say, a female or a male has some issue and they start eating themselves around a particular, and I think it's always consciousness, a mental emotional issue causing the physical reaction of needing to eat that, eating it over and over and over until genes get turned on or off. Remember, we're in a system that works off particular rules. Those codons get flipped, and that issue with cholesterol then is in the genetic code of that ancestry. But the cool thing about epigenetics is it can be undone too. Because epigenetics is if you have a physical habit of something like eating a bunch of stuff that makes you cholesterol and you pass that on, you can also change that habit. And here's the crazy thing, that I never heard this said yet, but I believe it to be true, is not only a physical habit, but your emotions and your mind change your physiology all the time too. So sometimes it's just a habit of changing your mind, which changes your body, right? So, and going on with this, you get a sense of it. In other words, you must find a little snatch, reveal it for a moment, and leave. And what happens to you and what happens is you begin to activate that part of you so much that now, even though a reality is different from what you're living, you have different things activated within you. So everything starts responding to you according to your different activations. In other words, it's a fancy way of saying your life may seem like crap on the outside, but if you're affirming something different, it's going to start cycling around that, not what your environment's giving to you. Because the crazy thing is if we are part of the system, if we are part of the computer program and we're born of it, and Marcia said that we're a fractal of it, that means that if the system can write things, so can we. We have the ability to write not only what happens in our physical body, but happens in our reality, right? So when you feel fat, your food makes you fatter. It does. When you feel slender, your food keeps you slimmer. It does. You must understand that because you see people eating similarly with different results, and you say, oh yeah, it's their metabolism. And we say, what do you think metabolism is? Metabolism is a vibrational response to your moment in time. Metabolism is the way energy is moving through your body, you see. And so everything is responding to the way you feel. And if you're angry, your metabolism is going to be entirely different than you sitting there having fun. If you're feeling guilty about eating that piece of cake, and you're thinking, oh, I shouldn't eat this piece of cake because I'm going to gain weight, well, what do you think you're programming to the results of you eating that piece of cake, right? Because we're programming all the time. And Tron comes in here. I'm always big about movies, and people may think I'm crazy about that. But Tron is all about, the original Tron was this guy that was they called him a user. Basically, they used the computers and they made everything. They called them users. And the programs were the things that are in the system that are operating, right? So in the movie Tron, the main guy is the user, goes into the system where almost everything else is a program. And the user can actually change the programs in the system because they're no longer a program at the whim of what happens within the system. You become loose from it. You become a user of it, and in that way, you become like an awakened avatar. So you have the mixture of knowing things and being able to interact with reality as opposed to just being at the whim of what happens to the system. Because here's the cool thing. If we see something negative happen in reality and we start feeding that, if we start thinking that, you are making that stronger. We have to create the opposing energy to change it. Okay? If you're seeing the government take over, then you start putting out light around changing that. Not buying into the fear, because if you bought into the fear, you bought into the system. Well, I've been thinking around here when I drive around and I see those signs that say pray for rain. I got myself caught up in the system about a month, 2 months ago, when it hadn't been raining for a while. I was at the gym and they were having like these newscasts. There's no words, but you got to see the images. And images are so freaking powerful. Images are the most powerful thing out there. More powerful than words sometimes, because an image can go in and you can't get to freak out. I'm sure you've watched a movie before and he's like, oh my God, I wish I'd never put that in my head. So they're talking about drought, 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 and I'm feeling powerful. And by the time I leave, I just feel weak. And what I did is I gave my power, I helped program drought here as opposed to programming it's going to rain and we're going to have plenty of rain. It's not, you know, because every time somebody says, oh, it blows my mind because I hear this a lot when I'm working on people. We don't have enough rain and this is going to happen. And then it rains, right? Which is opposed to their reality. So in a way, the opposing forces, we're voting all the time. The thing is you want to vote on what you really want, not what they're giving you. So it's like what I've been playing with when I see one of those signs about praying for rain, I state something like, it is raining, or there's plenty of rain. I'm putting out the consciousness to create that because the need to pray for it is also putting it away. And it's a weird kind of way things work, but that's just one example.
I got a thing on Facebook where somebody was saying, I don't want to know their names, I don't want to know why they did it, I don't want to hear about them, I don't want to hear about the trial, try and do whatever you need to do, but I don't want to hear about it, I don't want it on the news. I want to hear the good stories. I want to hear about the rescue workers that rushed in and the police and the way they handled it and all the good things that went on and how people reached out and helped each other. And it took me back to a class I went to.
You talking about Boston?
Yeah.
Okay.
And a class that I went to for teachers where a dolphin trainer taught that, you know, you withhold attention from a child that's acting badly. And when they act good, return your attention, you know. And that we are programming the system by our news programs concentrating on the negative for too long, We need those positive stories. We need the good news.
Did y'all see that picture on Facebook I posted? I can't remember where I swiped that, but I saw on somebody else's Facebook where the guy's sitting there watching the TV. It's like, what are we going to do about with continued, or what are we going to do to stop this continued terrorism? And the next frame is him turning the TV off. It's literally that. You've got to turn what you're putting your attention in, because your attention is literally writing within the system. We are collectively writing our future. So there may be, there's this conspiracy theory that there's a select few trying to write our future as a collective. Well, that'll only happen if we give them the power, because it's we the people, not we the few individuals. It's we the people. It's the majority of the rule. But this is why I'm always telling people not to keep focusing on the negative, because you're helping write that history or that future. You got to write in a different future by focusing on what you want to happen. And I was talking to Deborah and Bambi earlier, and I've got the issue myself. I'm trying to free myself, because really I think that's what I'm doing, why I'm doing what I do. Because typically what you find yourself in is you're really trying to do for yourself. So I'm really trying to free myself from imprisonment in one way or the other. And I'm trying to help other people do the exact same thing. So where I am right now is getting to where I can believe that that's possible 100%, which just comes down to me claiming it instead of working on it. And the jump that I'm trying to make, and this has been coming to me, the bottom rung is you see the problem, like Laura's talking about. You see the problem, which that's what I've been focusing on. What's your problem? And then the second is, okay, what can we do to fix that? We got the problem. Now here's the solution. We're going to keep doing the solution to get what? The end result. But what if, when you get to a certain level of understanding, it's simply just focusing on the end result, not trying to fix it, and not looking at the problem all the time. Because if you look at the problem all the time, that's where your energy goes. Trying to fix it, that's where your energy goes. The solution, that's where your energy goes. So when somebody's trying to take your energy and put it into something, be very aware that you're feeding a particular, basically you're adding your energy to an equation, an energy equation. And the more math, the more numbers that are in a particular equation, the more likely it's going to manifest or show up on the board. So if you don't want something to happen, I'm not saying you ignore it. You know, Lori's right. You've got to see the problem, but then you interject what you want, right? So why I'm saying that, because I want you to be aware of that and thinking about that when we're working on the body. Because what I'm working on is getting the program of what you want as opposed to what's showing up on the body. Because to me, what's showing up on the body is a result of mental emotional patterns that are locking you into something that may not be that good for you. But you've got to be focusing on the end result too. So I'm trying to make this jump, or in the process of making this jump between focusing on the problem, then here's the solution, getting so caught up in the solution of doing that, that I miss focusing on the end result. So I'm trying to, in my growth, I'm trying to bring all that together. So the next thing we're going to do